And once again, I welcome all the panelists. So much talent, so much HR talent in this room. I feel very privileged to moderate this session. So let's start without further ado. Guys, like attrition, right, is the keyword, is the buzzword. Everywhere you see, right from stock market, all the IT stocks getting hammered to the hiring, there's the buzzword is attrition. That attrition is causing so much problem. So I wanted to check with you folks if you feel that is attrition now slowly getting under control, or do you think that the things are going to get worse? Maybe Gaurav, if I can, you being the talent manager at Flipkart, where product company always super important for you to have the great guys and be able to continue. What do you think about this? Do you think that the attrition is now balancing out, slowly tapering, and maybe even going down, or do you think it's worsening?
So Bhavesh, thanks. Attrition is something which is very current. There is enough being spoken about it. I also believe that level attrition going up and down. There are phases. We are also been through very unprecedented times. A lot of churn has happened in people's lives as well, personal lives as well. So we will continue to see. One can fairly assume that there's some level of uncertainty will always be there. And rather than commenting on the level of attrition going down or up, and no one can predict the future.
Okay.
What I believe in is that if we flip it and see, okay, what is working for retention?
Okay.
There are 100 reasons one may decide to change ship or leave the organization, but there could be some fundamental building blocks which ensure retention. And
okay.
I think as an organization, if we focus on those building blocks, rather than in short, if I have to say that how do you again not just retaining your people, but how do you retain your customers? And there are some basic things, right? So that begins with understanding your customer,
okay,
understanding what they value, right? How do you come into the picture? How do you provide that value? And then you deliver that value consistently, reliably. So you build trust, you build long-term relationship. I think it's no different with people.
All right.
And that's what I believe is works in the long run in terms of retention.
Got it. Thank you. So Gaurav very cleverly hasn't committed to it going up or down. Being a true HR, thank you, Gaurav, for that input. Venetia, you are part of one of the largest, IT services company in India, Cognizant. Where do you see attrition going? Do you see it stabilizing? Do you see it going up and down? Do you agree with what Gaurav has mentioned? Any input from you?
To be frank, right, so I represent the campus program of Cognizant. So I think we got hit the most, right, this year,
yes.
Because it's the freshers who are the most sought after, right, I would say, in the market. So we couldn't identify any fresher without at least 2 offers, right, in hand. And wow. The trend did kind of spike up, but owing to the market situation, hopefully that is the reason, I see that it is coming down, right? So our joining ratios are stabilizing, getting back,
okay.
I wouldn't say to normalcy, but okay. Yes. So it goes back to what organizations also want to project themselves, for, right? In terms
okay.
of the development or the sustenance of the individual who's joining them, right? So okay. I think most organizations have done that, seeing the volatility in the last couple of years. So we did too, especially for the freshers, right? Such as your retention programs, or I wouldn't focus on retention. I would call it developmental programs, right? The role progression okay. programs, offering them opportunities to do higher education within, right? So that at least the choice of why they are leaving can be reduced, right? There are top few reasons why they leave, right? Primary could okay. be compensation. You have multiple offers, but role is also continuing to play an important one, right?
Okay.
So can we give that role internally? Can we give the time for the freshers to develop and play those roles internally, right? And that communication clarity to employees matter, at least to delay their decision on moving out, right? I think our organizations overall in the industry, we've started looking at those, right? 2-3 focus areas which our Gen Zs would look for, and start communicating more, start engaging more on those lines. And that is for sure starting to pay results, right? But it will take a couple of cycles. But still, yeah, we should wait and watch for the next couple of quarters to see how the trend is going to be like.
Thank you. Anybody else wants to add something to it?
Yeah, Bhavesh Shaul here, if I may come in.
Sure.
Yeah, it's a different perspective, right? An alternative view to this is that, the need for talent today is getting very skill specific, right? And therefore, what is happening is that if you are an individual who has a particular skill, and if that skill gets, that much more niche, then what happens is organizations are automatically ring fencing you in some sense, right? And what happens is, in the talent management framework, you're also talking about top talent management separately, right? And there is a very, very unique way of managing top talent. If you are top talent, my answer is that in companies, if you are featuring in the top talent group, that group attrition is coming down significantly, because a lot of the interventions that companies are making are getting to be successful, right? And therefore, my answer would be that if you're top talent, if you're in some industry, you have niche skills, the company's taking care of you, and therefore attrition is coming down significantly in that group, and retention has gone up significantly.
Okay. Thanks, Shaul. That was very...
Sorry.
Yeah, no, please go ahead.
I'll just add one more point to this. I think when you ask the question of attrition, it kind of ties in to the larger theme we're talking about, which is the demand-supply mismatch that we have in the tech sector, especially not just the tech sector, it's the digital skill area. So in the digital skills, and when you talk about, and there are different buzzwords out there, but basically when you call it, cloud computing, AI, data science, analytics, these are the major skills where you're going to see a disproportionate gap between, the demand and supply as well. So I think for me, this attrition is kind of also coming with the fact that there is more demand out there vis-a-vis the supply. You have more options today as a employee than you had in the market, and that gives you more empowerment to quit as well. And it may be that I'm happy in my job, but if I get a really great offer which comes knocking on my door, why not? We will all kind of go ahead and explore it as well. And it's not just now. In fact, voluntary attrition has been on the rise continuously since 2016. 2020 was the only year, because of the pandemic, that it was, it was still under control. But it is stabilizing. It's stabilizing because of various factors, and organizations are also learning. They're also learning how to cope with it.
Correct.
So 2021 was a better year. 2022 is a better year than 2021.
Oh, really?
The second half of 2022 is better than the first half that we had of 2022. But my sense is it is going to continue to be an area we're going to look at. It will stabilize, but not really to an extent, just till we fix that gap that we have. So it will continue to be an area companies will need to focus on. And I think what everyone talked about, right? How do you retain talent? It's not going to be a one size fits all. Some companies over the last few years have invested in learning, actually wanting to understand what is causing that attrition, and they have taken steps to adapt. And I think smaller organizations have an unfair advantage as compared to more larger scales in terms of agility and adaptation. But those organizations that are able to adapt and have invented, more long-term frameworks rather than knee-jerk reactions will be better placed to handle that attrition. But you can't predict the future. That's absolutely right. But I do feel it is going to be a trend that we will have to look out for in the coming few years.
Awesome. Thank you, Anu. So the next question is kind of an extension of the first question, right? It seems like everybody is generally agreeing that things are getting better. I think after the pandemic, we were all kind of a bit in shock and awe, and I think the attrition also was just at the peak. So great to hear that everybody feels that it is getting a little bit under control. So in terms of the strategies, a lot of you mentioned that companies can use strategies. Companies are using strategies to retain talent. is there, I mean, Aditya, do you want to maybe talk a little bit about any particular strategies that you're using or anything in general about attrition that has worked for your organization that maybe our audience can also benefit from?
Yeah, so thanks for having me, Bhavish. So one is, this market right now is, how do I term it? It's a funny market to be in. One side, it's growing, and the good part is it's growing across industry, and technology seems to be a big leveler across industry, right? If you look at the market perspective. Retention is key for organizations, and I think so. Venita spoke about campus, and you've seen another trend is a lot of people are working after 2-3 years would want to do their masters and not in India. A lot of people are leaving because they would want to pursue masters outside India, right? So one, investing in education, and a lot of people spoke about it from an organization perspective, where you take care of the take care of the employee from an education standpoint, making sure that their demands are met from a upskilling perspective, because for the short skilling perspective, they upskill themselves from your various learning tools they do. But from a longevity perspective, the organizations have those masters in play that plays an important part for making sure that you retain set of talent in the organization. And the other big thing which is really helped organization to help and retain talent is flexibility, giving them flexibility to deliver on their products, deliver what is needed for it to be delivered, irrespective of wherever the work can be done from, right? That is very, very important, because
is that what you guys have implemented? So as Informatica,
flexibility is the key, and the power is obviously given back to the managers of making sure that they implement in the right way of flexibility to the system. Now, there are roles within the organizations which may or may not have flexibility, but then I think so we've all become, we've understood that work can be done from home, right? And we are all very appreciative. So I think so flexibility and education from a early talent and flexibility from a mid to senior talent has played an important part from an attrition control standpoint.
Thank you. Flexibility and talent, those are the mantras. Anybody else wants to add anything to anything that you have done which has really worked for you?
If I may, so this is Sonia. Hi. Okay, thank you. So I think one thing that we need to change from our approach to retaining talent is, or which we have changed in Relio, is now we focus on careers. The pandemic has kind of changed the equation that people had with their jobs. Now people want long-term careers, understanding of how the organization can support their individual requirements. So what we've done is we've come up with a host of career enrichment programs. So basically, if you want to maybe become an account manager, or want to become an architect, or a leadership, or want a general management kind of a role, there are structured programs that are available for you to move within the organization. What that allows us to do is groom people with our peculiar Brilio DNA for these roles. It also allows us to retain top talent, retaining good talent, which we would have lost out on if they went for these roles outside. The other thing that we kind of have started focusing on is bringing in various processes which are focused on careers, talking about careers. So if you look in the tech industry, most of our managers are more comfortable talking about impact. Performance management is all about what have you done, how well have you done in this year. Creating that organic space where you're talking about what do you want to do, what are your aspirations, how can we support you. These career conversations, these check-ins, career check-ins are helping people see a slightly more long-term future within the organization, and hence allows us to get a sense of where they want to go. Also gives them a sense of where Brilio is willing to help them. So to my mind, this is what is kind of going to help in the future.
Great. Like have a support individual requirements. Have career check-ins. Make sure that their career paths that the manager is talking about. Some brilliant idea from you. Thank you. Anything else? Anybody wants to
If
add
I
to?
may add,
Yeah.
Bhavesh, this is Prithvish.
Yeah, Bashir,
I
please
think
go.
a clear three-prong strategy that's helping us in some extent is, of course, looking at say from the last 3-4 years, how have we studied talent in the marketplace within TCS in terms of what is the kind of talent that's coming in that has stayed with us, why are they leaving, that kind of research. Second, to mitigate your immediate problems, what are you doing as an organization? And third, long term, and this is very important for us, and I'm sure it has helped other organizations, is to link learning, careers, and rewards. And I think that for a larger organization like us has really helped. And we've implemented some very future forward looking programs, and we call it as the Wings 1, Wings 2, and Wings 3. So it's largely catering Wings 1 to the early talent, to junior talent in the organization. Even before they come and join us, we kind of enable them with programs that can help them to come at a slightly premium level in terms of salaries and also in terms of the skills that they come with. And also as they come and join you and they spend a couple of years, they're not just looking for merit increments at the end of the performance cycle, but they're kind of seeing increases as they move in terms of skills and competencies, and they move in terms of role. And of course, there's constant governance around the business unit, your leadership, and how that movement is happening. At the same time, for your mid-level and senior level, you have these leadership programs that one goes through, and at the same time, you're acting as a person who can really grow strong in technology, but at the same time you're also moving towards managerial responsibilities or taking up leadership roles in the long run. So I think clearly, though we are not paymasters in the industry, the way we can offset that is by really focusing on careers and by linking that with learning and rewards. I think that has helped for us to kind of contain attrition to a certain extent.
Richard, beautiful quote. Link learning, careers, and rewards. I think I'm going to use it next in one of my posts or something like that. I love that quote. Link learning, careers, and rewards. Thank you so much. Anil, do you want to go next?
Yeah, sure. I just had a slightly different perspective, with what Soumya mentioned on one topic. But before that, I'm reminded of a quote that I read where the IBM CHRO, Nikhil Lamure, he calls this trend as a great re-evaluation, not the great resignation, because people are rethinking who they are and re-evaluating and where, when, and why they work. So employee expectations of companies are evolving. So organizations have just got to stay ahead of the game. At Sutherland, we keep doing exit survey analysis, right? And then I'm sure all of us do. And it more or less points to the same reasons for voluntary exit, which is health issues, desire for more compensation, and hesitancy to get back into the office locations, because during the pandemic, we asked people to go wherever they wanted to work, and they've gone to remote places as well, to their native hometowns as well. So these are some of the issues that we are seeing for voluntary exits even today. And like I said, we've just got to stay ahead of the game, and all organizations just need to plan for things that cater to today's talent. Now, the point I was talking about, what Soumya mentioned, is longevity, right? And tenure is no longer a priority for people today, for the talent today. Job security even is not a priority. Today's talent thinks how the job fits into what I want to do in my life, where I want to live, and what I want to really pursue in life. And that's how the job is shaped. Whereas in my time, or in all of our time, we shaped our lives around the jobs we had. But that's entirely different in today's world, is what I believe. And people do care about flexi, about all the benefits and the swag that comes with the job. Now, continuous learning, and I think a couple of co-panelists mentioned this. continuous learning is a very powerful retention tool. And I think every organization is doing its bit, and it has to be top down. And I truly believe it has to be top down. Otherwise, it's just an initiative and it doesn't really get adopted. So partnering with external organizations, if you don't have the capability within, I think is the way to go. So we've done that with several organizations, Pluralsight, Skillsoft, Percipio, and we offer these courses to our employees online on our LMS. So these are things that we're doing. And compensation changes will have to be done here and there, off and on. And that's not something, it is not the norm, but it has to be an exception.
Thank you, Anil. So, Anu, I had a quick question for you that I think a lot of what we're hearing, great feedback coming about, linking learning, careers, and rewards, the great revaluation, when, why of this. Do you think this applies to the product companies like yourself as well? Because I think, some of this thing we have heard is from folks who are from the services kind of sector. So do you think that, do you have a similar view from the product perspective?
So Bhavesh, are you referring to me, Anil from Sutherland?
No. I just wanted to get Anu's view on that. If you think that it also applies to product-based companies.
You can chime in after me, Anil. No worries. Bhavesh, I would say that yes, I think all the challenges that everyone has been talking about, demand, supply, retaining the top talent, whether you say services or whether you say product, ultimately the skill sets are more or less, I would say, similar. Just how you are applying it kind of would vary. But in fact, in organizations like this, we are seeing more demand, or if you can say competition for top talent, because that top talent is very niche and everyone wants that same kind of a talent. And it's not helping that internationally there is a global workforce shortage, especially the US. So I think, the US was the leader when it came to a lot of that. It's very clear over the last few years, they are not able to meet, the talent. So they are now exploring international locations, which are now coming to Latin America, India. And India is a beneficiary of that. And that's really great. It's really a good time to be in this industry in India. We are benefiting in terms of demand, from all of this. And I think I resonate with what everyone has been saying. I think our key learnings have also been that you will have to look at it holistically. You will kind of have to look at, you just can't rely on the traditional mode of hoping that the educational institutes will churn out the STEM talent that you need, because those graduates are in demand by 10 other people out there. We know how much we have to compete for campus placements, but also the average life of a skill, and I was reading somewhere, used to be 30 years, it's now 5 years. So the skill needs are also evolving really rapidly and fast. So you will actually need to have a learning program internally, when whether it is, kind of collaborating with academia, or whether it's collaborating with, the edtech firms out there, or just leveraging your own talent. So we've also created curriculum ourselves using our own subject matter expertise. They've just created learning paths, career programs ourselves, giving people the opportunity to just not go lateral careers, but actually careers are circular, horizontal, you can call it whatever you want, but just giving people the opportunity to shape their careers the way that they have. And then ultimately linking it, I think what Anil said really resonated, is people are wanting to find meaning in their work. They're wanting to find purpose. It is not just, it is compensation, but to a level. After that, I think they're looking for way more than what we were thinking of initially. So it all actually ties in, and it's going to be irrespective of whether it's a service industry or a product industry.
Got it. Thank you. And if anybody has any last thoughts, otherwise I'll move into the next question.
I have an interesting one, which we tried. Maybe I can share with this forum. See, by and large, right, this is a very impulsive decision when sometimes it is thought through, but most of the time, at least for the generation that we are dealing with, the Z, right, it's pretty impulsive. So they just need someone to hear them out, right? How many of our organizations have a proper exit interview? So we did a check on that, right? Outdated questions, somebody who's just doing a, a telecalling kind of a job, right? So we set that right a year back, and it is paying results now. So we call it, it's actually a methodology of identifying the risks upfront, right? Proactively. And of course, that will give you enough meat so that you can mitigate some of the risks, right? And it'll give you a lot of insights on why, right? Why is this happening? Is it an emotional decision, or is it very thought through? And we don't have any enablers internally, and hence, there's this decision that we have to support, right? So, so we call it performance counseling and consulting, right? So we measure something called as happiness index of our freshers, right, during the in-training period and during the year one. So we give them a score ourselves, right, based on certain metrics, right? Are they happy or not? Are they going to continue or not, right? So we have a prediction. And once we clearly know the reason, right, who is the actual reason? Is it us as an organization, or is it them, right? So if it is them, it is easier. All that it requires a pair of ears and a bit of counseling and help visually show them all the enablers that are available within the organization for them to explore. If it is us, yes, we don't have a choice. If the decision is already taken, then we course correct for the upcoming others, right? So that it doesn't repeat again. So this has worked, but the volumes play a game out here, right? How do you have your processes, tools, so that you meet the volumes for all the resignations that we could get?
I love the idea, happiness index, right? I mean, for the new joiners, I'm pretty sure that that resonates with a lot of us. A lot of us can take it back and see if we can implement it in our companies as well. Perfect. Thank you. So I think it's very clear that the things are getting better. Still a lot of work to do, and I think having a proper career map, proper learning, proper education is really important, right? So my next question is about that. So yes, we need to educate, but like Anu mentioned that average skill is only 5-year-old. In cloud, it is maybe even less. We have a joke in our company that if you go in a coma for a year, if you're working on any of the cloud providers and you wake up after a coma after 1 year, then your knowledge is completely obsolete, because things have changed so dramatically in that just 1 year that you'll have to relearn a lot of things, right? So AWS, Amazon Web Services, which is one of the largest cloud providers, or Azure, right? Or even Oracle, that all the tech companies, they happily say, we released 2,000 major features this year. We released, 1,500 major features this year. So things are changing so fast. It's not like in the before time that Java version used to come only once every 2 years, 3 years, and that's the skilling time. So in this environment where things are changing so rapidly, right? How do you make sure that your folks are upskilled, right? That the employees are upskilled and they're constantly in that process of being upskilled? Any strategies, any thoughts that anybody wants to share about this? That how do you keep learning current for everyone? I think Soumya, do you want to take it? Because I think I know that Brilio works quite a bit in cloud.
Absolutely. So we actually have a two-pronged approach to this. Some of these developments are things that we need to get our people skilled in for us to continue to work in the space that we do.
Correct.
So that is something that we work with. We have partnerships with external things. We have partnerships with the providers, and all of this are very structured ways of learning. We also do something called a skill at will. Basically, what we do is we create opportunities for people to learn all of these new technologies, even if their current job does not require it. Gives them access to learning, which we've already established is something that we need to be providing to keep them interested. Also gives us access to a larger pool of trained folks as and when we need it. And when I say that skill at will, it gives them access to learning, it's just not on a platform or certain workshops. There are multiple ways that they can learn. We have structures around peer learning. We have structured around existing experts who are mentoring people. We actually encourage a lot of thought leadership coming out from especially the junior folks who typically do not do it. We handhold them through all of these, the thought leadership creation process gives them the opportunity to actually understand the entire thing holistically, rather than going into a workshop and coming out with 5 things that you should need to do differently. So it's more of a holistic holistic approach, and we've kind of democratized learning in the process. And for us, it's been working. We still struggle, but it's getting better.
Thanks, Soumya. Anybody else wants to add to how does skilling work in your organization? Some best practices, something that has really worked for you.
So Bhavesh, one thing is the content may change. So you gave an example of cloud. Anyways, in tech space, there are so many things which change very rapidly.
Correct.
And we also are in a stage where there is no dearth of content. So you don't need to depend on the organization for content, access to content, etc. But even despite having all the access at your hand, you may see a large variance in how people adopt. One is people are also busy in their jobs, so it requires a lot of stretch. Then you will find even a lot of training done by organizations, seeing varying levels of adoption and engagement and people interest and participation. So what we realized is that the best hook is actually an emotional hook, where you see that, okay, as an individual, what are their dreams and hopes and aspirations. So what we have done, and this journey for Flipkart, specifically focusing on career, and that's why I agree that career has become a central theme for us, is where we have built in people's aspiration at the center of a lot of people practices. So how does it mean? What does it mean is that whatever we are doing, are we starting with understanding, okay, what does this person want to do in their career? Now, and we started with not just with employees, but we looked at an ecosystem and saw that, okay, managers are play a very critical role. Yeah, people look up to their managers. So how are they being seen? How are they playing a role of a manager in facilitating careers? We looked at our people and found that, it also doesn't come naturally. So we also have a lot of young workforce. Thinking long, thinking careers doesn't come naturally. So I would say the most important skill set to build on is thinking careers. It's a skill in itself. So how do we help people to think careers? And over 3 years, we have done interventions for employees, for managers, and in overall level. For example, this year we implemented an internal talent marketplace, which brings all kinds of opportunities on a platform which is AI powered.
Okay.
So tools and tech aside, the core is that how do we build in people's aspirations and desires, and that gives a momentum for continuous learning. So, I would add one more word to continuous learning. It's also continuous sensing and learning. So what's happening outside? So it's a continuous sensing.
Got it.
As a group, then how do we continue to learn?
Some great things. I think Soumya, skill at will. I think that's a really nice catchphrase. And Gaurav, your emotional hook for learning. I think those are some valuable things. Perfect. So the next question I had was kind of moving on to, I think everybody agrees that attrition is getting slightly better. Learning careers is the kind of right mantra. So in terms of the organization development, right? What should be the organization development strategy of a company? And maybe you can share something that you have done as well in terms of that. And I think there's a lot of questions here as well as to like, okay, when you do an organization development and you have this career map, you kind of have your learnings and careers in it together, right? Prithvish, maybe I kind of do. How do you make sure that in masters, you may have so many people that they're actually getting ramped up, they're actually getting the learnings, they're actually moving up in career when you have such a large volume of people at TCS, and maybe something best practices that you've learned for our audience?
Yeah, so I think most of it stems out from your workforce strategy. When Of course, business planning happens, and then workforce plan happens. And today, of course, we were close to about 25 plus business units. Now we've kind of reorganized ourselves into three large business groups, and then we've kind of aligned ourselves more towards customer groups, right? So that way it makes us more relevant to our customers, to the kind of business that we cater to, and to the kind of skill, people, and all of that come together with it. So when a 600,000 plus workforce is what you're managing, what is very important is what is your data saying in terms of job recs, in terms of skills, experience levels, when are they required, and all of that. And a big portion of this work is towards how do you internally mobilize people, move people, rotate people, move them up at certain levels, etc. So when all of this happens, I think my first part of what I mentioned, learning becomes very, very crucial. Like say if it's AWS, cloud services, or any other new age technology group that comes in, we have our own practices to lead that, right? So apart from the delivery organizations, we have respective practices that act as thought leadership to the entire organization or to respective business units, and really will feed in that intelligence to see where are we going to invest, why should we run a boot camp, say in AWS, for the next 4 weeks, and whom are we going to bring into this. So I think there's a whole lot of conversation around it. While there's continuous planning happening, there's also execution happening to ensure that talent is getting groomed. So in that sense, programs like Wings One, or merit increments that we kind of club together, or retention allowances, etc., all of them kind of come together at the end of the day. We may not be working at a speed at which the industry would want us to work, but I think those incremental changes that we are able to see at such a large scale is really helping us to put ourselves in front of the customers and be still relevant when we have such smaller companies also doing so well in the technology landscape.
Correct. But question to everyone, like how do you track, right? When you have such a large volume, right? How do you track? How do you make sure that your learning plans and your plans, the strategy that you implemented is actually making sense, is actually helping with something? Anybody wants to take it?
Can I give a quick example, Bhavish, if that speaks to it? So on the same theme, right? How do you make people's aspirations central to everything what you're doing? So what we have done is, just like your business goals, you have your annual goals in your performance management system, right? Beginning of the year, you kind of plan what are you going to achieve, the results you're going to go after. What we've done is, instead of having a separate development plan, the individual development plan or the roadmap, we have made it a part of the goals because it is as important as any other goal. And what it enables is, one, it creates a space for dialogue of what is it I'm going to learn this year, what kind of support as an individual I'm going to get. And also, it also gives a chance for the organization to then match and align that, if this is what this individual is great at, this is where she wants to go, what kind of opportunities would match and align. So it's kind of a journey which the organization and the individual takes together. And it also emphasizes the importance of it. So it's not something which you do beyond work, it's part of work.
Got it. Anybody else has any input on the, how do you make sure your organization's development strategy is working?
So Bhavish, this is Anil.
Yeah, Anil, please go ahead.
I just wanted to add to what the others said. So when we can measure, we can definitely manage, and this is a no-brainer. So deploying technology to measure what is being imparted, and then the outcome of all of that learning has got to be woven into the progress that employees are making. And what I mean by that is, I think Gaurav made that point, include that in the goal setting exercise itself, and then track it through the year and then review it from time to time. Our organizational EVP, employee value proposition, has got 3 pillars, which is grow your own way, be yourself, and do interesting things. And 2 out of that focuses on development. We provide employees immense opportunities to learn and upskill, cross-train, so that they could be, they could leverage opportunities across the 17 countries we are, and all the horizontals and verticals we support. And we've rolled out, in the pandemic, we admitted to our employees that when we had the pandemic, we just got everybody to just go start working remote, but we didn't really train them to manage remote workforce. I mean, earlier people were working with 15, 20 people in a brick and mortar in an office, and they were doing it pretty well. And then we just assumed that they will do this job exceedingly well, even when people are working in the office, working at home, working in a remote native location on a beach, wherever, right? So, and that awakening has come over time, and then we've now deployed programs which tackle managing a remote workforce, bringing in empathy and also performance management at the same time. So that's really helped in our OD.
Got it. Thanks, Anil. Thanks, Sam. I really like the trifecta that you had. I couldn't write down the entire thing, but it was grow, be yourself, and
do interesting things. Be yourself. Do interesting things, and grow your own way.
On your own way. Okay, great. Some great catchphrases I'm getting out of this. Thank you. So, Aditya, next question for you is about, I think, the fact that you are head of talent acquisition, right? What innovation are we doing in hiring? Do you think that post-pandemic and in the new world with great resignation and all this attrition, and people, like somebody was mentioning that they have 2-3 offers when we give them an offer and you have to compete with that. Are there any innovations that you have done in hiring? Are there anything structurally different that you're doing in hiring compared to before?
Yeah, so a lot of innovation, but it really depends. So we are a hardcore product organization, more of a technology organization. So we compete extensively with all the big players in the market. And when it comes to core tech, there is a lot of innovation required. But I think the first important part is, I think you guys talked about, I think it's more of people have introspected during COVID of realizing what they want to do. So it's more of a great introspection than anything else at that period of time. And from a innovation, from a talent acquisition perspective, one, it is also about talent attraction. Henceforth, we are all on sitting on this call, promoting our own brands in the organization, making sure somebody talked about employee value proposition of saying why come and work for us, because it's become an employee candidate-led market, right? So you need to know, one, you need to understand where the talent pool lies. So the most important part is talent intelligence. For you to know where the target pool, you can't just go berserk all over the place and say, hey, we are hiring. You should know where your talent pool lies. So a lot of investment in that area, a lot of investment on doing meetups, which are core to the area which you want to hire from an organization perspective, so that you are able to attract the right talent in the organization. Also, then reversing it of using the tools which are convenient from a candidate perspective, your self-scheduling tools, interview scheduling tools, so that they have the right experience. Even if they don't get selected, they speak volumes about your organization. So, the right tool from a hiring perspective. The other thing is investing a lot on codathons and hackathons, because you get I think the codathon gives you an unbiased hiring approach, looking at pure talent from a hiring perspective, right? So using them to solve some of your own issues from a hackathon and a codathon perspective, so that you know which kind of talent you would want to hire from an organization perspective.
Okay.
Right? And also strategically working with the larger community, the colleges, everything, and giving back on saying what's the talent pool sitting there, right? Of training them, because I still believe the fact that they're very smart engineers which come out, but they've not been trained on how to showcase the kind of work they've been doing. I think you brought up this topic in the starting, right? Training them about how to be present on showcasing the kind of work they've been doing, right? There has been some changes in the education system now, with internship being longer and few other options which is there, so that you have more experience on live projects. I think so more intake on those areas will help us from a hiring perspective. But just some small things which we do, and a lot of other things on the AI and ML. But then we'll need another talk, another webinar for that. But a lot of
Correct.
but I leave it up to my colleagues, to add on their input.
Perfect. Sahul, you've been a bit quiet. Do you want to add anything to this particular, innovations in hiring? Okay, I think we have kind of lost him maybe. Okay, anybody else wants to, any innovations that you have done in hiring that you would like to talk about, or what you're doing for hiring?
I wouldn't call it innovation, but I'm sure many of us are doing that, right? Skilling them, catching them young, skilling them early, participating in their learning, right? All of that is also a model. So a percentage of our hires come from a pre-skill mode, pre-skill aligned hiring mode. Yeah, and to one of the previous points, I just wanted to, bring up this point because my colleagues may be facing a similar issue, right? In terms of, there was a question on how do we skill, right? I wanted to bring this point on what is not working. See, all these certifications, assessments, your knowledge-based, skill-based, right? At least post this pandemic, right? I think our target groups who can be freshers, laterals, whoever, right? They've become experts in, even mastering the AI tool, how it captures malpractices, right? So today, the KBA and the SBA reports, right? The assessment reports that we get and our decision making on hiring basis the reports, that's becoming a little irrelevant. It's losing its relevance. So even if there are such methodologies that we adopt, right? To at least filter out. It may not be a selection methodology, but a filtering methodology. We are forced to have go back to the original models of having an interviewer, right? Test the actual knowledge by asking questions. Even if it is a virtual, evaluation, have a video on. So we are getting back to roots. I see that clearly happening. So this is not working.
You mentioned pre-skill and skill them early, right? What is the meaning of that? Like, is it before they even join you, you are skilling them, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Applicable more to freshers, yeah, but also to laterals a bit because we have the train and hire mode, where organizations can have a say on the content that needs to be skilled, right, for the audience. So it's a participative skilling and hiring that I would say.
Okay. Anu, what about you? Like, you like Anil, sorry, like Aditya, is a hardcore products company. Do you agree with what he mentioned? Is there anything different you are doing?
I think similar to what everyone is saying, Bhavesh, I would actually say when we're talking about hiring, I would bucket it into three major channels that we leverage. I think the first is what everyone talked about is your external market, lateral campus hiring. The second bucket, which I think organizations have ignored for a large period of time, but now they are realizing, is the internal talent that they have. So there is a huge talent that you have internally, and it is a matter of empowering them with their learning choices, and they can actually take up a lot of those stretch responsibilities and accountabilities. And I think even like our organization is realizing that may actually be also the best interim solution till you have that talent readily available in the external market, either because the skills don't exist or that skills are too much in demand. I think that's the second bucket we will need to start focusing on. And the third is going to be your seasonal talent, which is also now evolving, whether that's, we call it freelancers, contractors, advisors, specific niche skill sets that you can leverage on a time-to-time basis as well. I think for me, they would be the three buckets. I think in the first one, which is the most traditional, Bhavesh, because we've seen the most competition there. I think some things that have been working is you're exploring, expanding your talent pool, not just to the, your tier one, going down to, let's say, the next level in terms of cities, and hybrid and remote has made that possible. And you will get great talent there as well. So kind of expanding your sources and not just limiting it to what that we were used to. Second, it does not need to be 100% match. in terms of the skill set, having our own internal learning path so that even if someone is 70-80% there, you can upskill and equip them to be ready for the particular job. Partnering with academias has worked. It has two advantages of learning something as well from the talent group and professors, but I think we've seen greater partnerships with educational institutions, academias, and boomerangs. You would have heard that terminology as well. I think focusing a lot on boomerangs or talent who left for whatever reasons they may be, and they may be at a different point of time in their careers. That's also a good talent pipeline that we've been exploring. So just some ideas, Bhavesh.
Got it. Thank you. So one of the things I want to quickly run by you, and maybe anybody in the audience can also ask, is that we do a lot of something we like to call is the capability development framework. So we do this so we are a learning and development company. We are one of the largest Microsoft training partner, one of the largest AWS training partner, and so for a lot of companies, we have had them bring fresh talent to us, and then we assess the talent. We actually have a 60-day program where we've done a lot of innovations, like we have things like daily leaderboards and daily quizzes and leaderboards. So people are more interested. They especially when they are colleagues, they don't want to miss a day because I don't want that guy to be higher than me. I want to show him that I'm better than him. So that kind of fosters that competition, and everybody actually attends proactively, actually looking for quiz, and then it ends in whatever industry certification that is AWS, Azure, whatever that might be, right? And then we do something called as experiential learning, where we go ahead and give them actually a client project that we have gotten an RFP or something from a client, but we strip out all the PIIs out of it and make a generic one, and they have to then generate the solution for the RFP, pricing, this, that, everything in a demo mode, implement the entire solution as well, again, demo it, again, leaderboard and stuff like that. So what we have seen is that in about 30 to 60 days, folks become really, really proficient compared to, just skilling, which is you teach them here or just one certification or something like that. Are you trying something like that in your hiring as well? Are you kind of doing something where you are bringing fresh talent and then grooming them for 30, 60, 80 days and making them deployable, or, in terms of product companies, product ready so that they can start contributing to the product? Is anybody doing something like this?
So Bhavesh, this is Anil. Sorry, someone was saying.
No, go ahead, Anil, no problem.
Okay. So, we identify ourselves as a product company within a services company. And though our number of development folks is only 20% of our overall headcount. So the exactly what you said, we partner with StackRoute, NIT StackRoute, NextWave, and a few other organizations for the train and hire model. I think Venetia or Soumya mentioned that earlier. And that is an ongoing exercise, which I'm sure most organizations are doing today, because you really can't expect 100% of your talent to be hired from lateral sources. Even if it is internal training, you definitely need some training and train and hire models too, because the pipeline of talent is so critical today that it's, for any organization, the problem that we have today is we have more business that we can ever handle. And I think all of us, all of us in the panel, all of us face the same problem today. Every business has more work than we can ever handle. So it's like water everywhere, not a drop to drink. Talent is abundant, but the right quality of talent at the right time and at the right cost is a challenge. And then we've had another challenge in the last year where people would take offers and shop around, and give up and the whole cycle starts all over again. So it has been a struggle. So we've got to deploy all these things, a combination of multiple things in order to stay ahead.
Thanks, Anil. Thank you so much. So I think we have only 2 minutes left. So I first we'll start with Q&A, but I wanted to, in case if somebody had a hard deadline and they have to drop, I really want to thank the entire panelists. You guys shared some wonderful insights with everyone. I'm pretty sure that the audience who is live, this will also go on our YouTube channel, and whoever is watching this offline will benefit tremendously from you sharing your expertise with them. So really big thank you to all of you. Having said that, I think let's start with the Q&A. So there are some questions in the chat. Team, if you have any questions, audience, if you have any questions, please type them, and I will look at the questions and we'll see, get some answers. So if you can extend for another 5-10 minutes, please do. If you have a hard stop, then thank you so much. Okay. So one of the questions is by Ishani. He says that should we focus on building employee competency or capability? What matter the most? Competency or capability? Anybody wants to take this? Soumya, you've been a bit quiet.
Ouch. So
it's a hard one.
competency. I'm assuming when she says capability, Shani, if you're there, did you mean skills?
Yes, Ishani says yes.
See, it cannot be either and or. I would say hire for competency. Skills can be trained, but we cannot deploy people without the right skills. If you have the right competencies, if you have the right attitude, skills are an easier fix. But you cannot do without either.
All right.
Would be my take on this.
And I would add to what Soumya said. I mean, you hire for skills. And then we look for competency within the confines of the organization. So every organization has a competency framework. And then we look for exactly that fit in order to deploy people to certain roles. So I think it's a combination of both, like Soumya said. I mean, you need to have both, but we hire definitely for skills.
Actually, Anil, that's where I would say we should hire for competencies going forward. I mean, that's the thing that in my personal opinion, that needs to change, because as long as, especially in the tech world, skills are changing very, very rapidly.
Correct. If
we start hiring for competencies, then our ability to upskill people is so much more.
Yeah, absolutely. So as just as a reference point, we have 4 competencies that we look for in our organization: IQ, EQ, CQ, and PQ. I mean, intelligence quotient, emotions quotient, capability quotient, and technical quotient. Right now, when you're interviewing a candidate, you really don't have time or the wherewithal to assess people on these 4 competencies. But we do definitely have to look for skills, their background, the ability to do a certain job, and you bring them on board. And if you have to deploy them into a leadership position and in a position of authority or responsibility, then you definitely need to assess them for competency. And hence my earlier response that you hire for skills and then you look for competencies to fit them into the role. But I'm sure, I mean, every organization deals with it in a different way. I was just talking about Sutherland.
Anil, you talk about 4 things: EQ, IQ. What are the other 2?
CQ and TQ, capability quotient and technical quotient. And we have a very elaborate detail of how each competency is measured. I mean, if anybody is interested, I can happily share that later.
Yeah, that will be very interesting. Thank you. Okay, so another question we had was tracking employee training progress. What and how to do it right? Why and how to do it right? Tracking employee training progress. Why and how to do it right? Should we track employee training progress? That are they training, or we should just say, here's it. It's up to you. Be yourself. If you can grow, learn, that's up to you.
So I'll take a quick shot at it. Although I'm responding without context in sense in what specific context, but ultimately.
So Gaurav, sorry, I think she had asked this when we were talking about the that employee we should have some upskilling program, right, and we should help them with their career. And I think Soumya talked about a few of those, I believe, and I think Anu talked about a few. I think Manisha as well. So that they have this kind of program to uplift in their career, right? Pritesh, I think, talked about wings 1, wings 2. So I think the question came around that time that should we be tracking their progress?
So I'm assuming here that, let's say, and Ishani, correct me if I'm wrong, that let's say you are coming from a learning oriented perspective, that how do we do it? And 2, 3 very broad things. One is ultimately, whenever you are training, the hope and the objective is that you are wanting participants to demonstrate new different behaviors ultimately. So either people do things differently, or they work differently, and that's why a lot of tracking is not about whether someone has done the training, but after, when they go back. And again, this is also, I'm using traditional models when I say go back, but at work, how they are working, in the ways of working, what they're working on, are you seeing a change? And for that, you go back to, and there are different ways, how we do it is also going back to their managers as well, including them in the process of, are they seeing any change? How do we support employees? Another thing which I also want to add is that behavior is a function of a lot of things. So it becomes at times difficult to connect training and then expect results. The results may be a function of a lot of other things. So it's also important to see, is your system helping those new behaviors? In the sense that you have trained people to do something X, but your incentives are, pushing them towards behavior Y. And there is a contradiction. So a lot of factors in the system. What are the leaders demonstrating? What are their managers and leaders demonstrating? So a lot of these other factors also come into play for people to behave and act the way they do. So training is just one part of the whole puzzle.
Fantastic. I had a question. The question is that what kind of colleges do you hire from? And is there a particular kind of college that you go to hire? Is there like a template to that? Okay, A colleges, B colleges, A town, B town. Any particular template that you can give to our audience?
That's very broad, no?
Yeah, that's a very broad question. I mean, in fact, all of us hire from all colleges. I mean, so we have Sutherland partners with 430 colleges across India. And every year we hire close to 3,000 people, for which we make at least 10,000 offers. And then we get 3,000 people onboarded at the hiring cycle between April to June. We also hire around 50 people from IITs and IIMs. So there is hiring going on from all segments, and there's no specific college or a specialty which organizations look for. We look for, I mean, if you're not hiring laterally for a particular role, if you're hiring freshers from campus, it doesn't matter whether you're an engineer or a BA graduate, right? You are hired because of your will to do a certain job in the best possible way, and that's what organizations look for. I mean, that's my view.
Got it.
Yeah.
I think until
point. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I think until 2015, larger players like us that hired volumes were going to very specific colleges, and we had something called as an accreditation, and we would do a lot of very specific focused hiring. But now we're very school agnostic. We go to about, used to go to about 500 colleges, make around 30,000 offers, but now we're bringing in still the same 35,000 joiners from colleges anywhere across the country. But at the same time, if we have a very specific need, like for example, Bhavesh, if we want a batch of 100 AWS folks, and if we have had some very focused work that we have done with, say, IIT Bombay or SRM in Chennai, then we would probably go and specifically hire from them. But the larger audience is coming from colleges across.
Perfect. I think I'm getting a lot of messages from everyone that they need to drop out. I know all of you are very busy. So thank you so much, everyone. There are still a lot of questions, but how about this? I'll try to collect the questions. Maybe I'll get offline some answers from them and post it on our social media. So thank you so much. I really want to thank you, Soumya, Gaurav, Pritesh, Vinisha, Anil, for coming and participating, and all the guys who have left as well. because of this. Thank you so much. This was super informative. I'm sure everybody who is participating, including me, is going home with a lot of food for thought in what strategies can we implement. And like Soumya was promising, I think this is going to solve some of their HR challenges going forward. So thank you. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you all.